Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back to a time before phones, before electricity, before toothpaste, and trust me, you're going to feel it immediately. It's 1325, somewhere in rural England, and you're waking up in what might technically be called a house, but it's closer to a wooden barn that's lost a fight with weather, time, and dignity. So before you get really comfortable and fall asleep, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And hey, comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time is it where you are? I find it super interesting to see who's joining you from all over the world. Now, mimes the lights, maybe turn on the fan for that gentle hum, and let's go on tonight's journey together. You're lying on a mattress stuffed with straw that's seen better centuries. The moment you shift, you hear the faint crunch of dry stems and maybe an exoskeleton or two. The blanket you've pulled around you? It's coarse wool and it smells like damp sheep. That's because it was probably a sheep 2 weeks ago. It's still dark out. Not the peaceful kind of dark, but the oppressive, weighty blackness of a world without electricity. You can't check your phone, there's no screen to tap. The only light, if you're lucky, is a smoldering ember in the central fire pit that's barely holding on after a long, smoky night. And now you're awake. Congratulations. Your back hurts, your knees are stiff. There's an itch on your leg you'd really like to ignore, because chances are it's lice, or fleas, or something else that medieval people lovingly referred to as just part of life. You sit up. That takes effort. The air is cold, colder than you expect. You can see your breath indoors. You instinctively pull your blanket tighter, but it doesn't help. There's no insulation. The wind weaves right through the walls, which are made from timber and coated in wattle and daub. A delightful mix of mud, straw, and dung that's slowly crumbling every time someone sneezes too hard. Next to you, someone stirs. You're not alone in this bed. In fact, it's not really your bed. You're sharing it with at least one sibling, maybe a cousin, and possibly a neighbor's kid whose family has too many children and not enough space. Beds are communal. Privacy is non-existent. You try not to make eye contact as you both pretend that neither of you farted during the night. There's a familiar scratching noise, probably rats in the thatch roof. You glance up. Nothing falls out today. That's a win. Historians still argue whether the average medieval thatched roof dropped bugs, dust, or entire rodents more often. The consensus? All three. Your first sensation of the day is cold. Your second is itchy. Your third is regret. This will become a theme. You swing your legs off the straw mattress, instantly regretting it. The floor is bare earth. It's uneven, lumpy, and cold enough to make your bones ache. You look around for your shoes.
They aren't really shoes in the modern sense, just stiff leather wrappings with holes in all the wrong places. One of them is still damp from yesterday. The other has something living in it. You shake it out and hope whatever it was has moved on. You try to stand, and your knees sound like a rusted gate. You're 17, but your joints suggest 60. Everything creaks. Everything aches. It rained last night. Of course it did. And now the entire house feels like the inside of a wet log. Your first priority is finding warmth. That means firewood. Except firewood is damp because the storage shed leaks, and you're too poor to own dry anything. You nudge a few logs toward the coals and blow gently. Smoke rises. You cough. Your eyes sting. There's no chimney, just a hole in the roof that works only when the wind cooperates, which is never. The fire finally catches. You're grateful. Not because it's warm. Oh no, that'll take another hour. But because you can boil water, eventually. Not to drink, mind you. The water's filthy. You'll drink weak ale instead, like everyone else, because at least that's been boiled. Medieval hydration, sponsored by beer. You shuffle toward the corner where your clothes are. They're the same ones you wore yesterday. And the day before, and probably all last week. You think about changing shirts, but you only own one. So you shake it out, check it for spiders, and prepare to put it back on. As you stretch, your back cracks again. You wince. This is normal. Medieval beds don't offer lumbar support. Your mattress is basically hay in a sack, and half of it has shifted to one corner. It's less of a bed and more of a suggestion. Outside, the village is starting to wake. You hear roosters, clanging metal, someone yelling at a pig. The sounds are oddly comforting. Not because they're peaceful, but because they mean you're not alone in this suffering. And it is suffering, but it's normal. You're poor, you're a peasant, and this is just how life begins every single day. You step out of your hut, wrapped in your cloak, boots squishing in the mud. A breeze hits your face, and for a moment you consider going back to bed. But there's no snooze button in the Middle Ages. Only hunger and chores. And hopefully something that looks vaguely like breakfast.
You're still barely awake, but it's time to get dressed. And by get dressed, we mean put back on the same exact thing you've been wearing for days, maybe weeks, possibly all year. There's no closet, no laundry rotation, no what vibe am I going for today? You've got one vibe, survival. You rummage through the pile of fabric at the edge of the room. Technically, that's your wardrobe. It's one shirt, one tunic, one pair of trousers, and one faint prayer that nothing's been nesting in them overnight. First, the shirt. It's made of coarse linen, undergarment, sleepwear, and occasional rag all in one. You pull it on over your head and immediately regret it. It's cold, still slightly damp from yesterday's sweat, and stiff in all the worst places. There's a crunchy patch near your collarbone that may have started as soup and evolved into a new form of textile. You ignore it. Then comes your tunic, wool, scratchy, itchy, smells like it fought a campfire and lost. You shimmy into it, trying not to think about how long it's been since it touched water. Most medieval folk didn't wash clothes often. Water was hard to heat, soap was expensive, and let's be honest, everyone was equally gross, so no one cared. Historians still argue whether peasants wore underwear. Some sources say yes, linen braies for men, long chemises for women. Others say most poor folk just skip a hassle entirely. In your case, let's say you do wear them, mostly for morale. Your trousers are basically cloth tubes tied at the waist and ankles. They sag in weird places and fit like they were designed by someone who'd never worn pants before. They bunch, they chafe, they do not flatter. But they work. You tie everything together with a belt. Not a leather strap with a cool buckle, just rope. Or a woven cord, if you're feeling fancy. It keeps your layers in place and gives you somewhere to hang your knife, which you always carry. Not because you're looking for a fight, because it's your only utensil. You use it to cut food, spread lard, pick your teeth, and if necessary, settle disputes over barley. Let's not forget the shoes. Yours are made of leather, technically. Really, they're more like floppy pouches for your feet. Stiff, cracked, and questionably waterproof. You stuff them with straw or moss to pad the inside, but that only helps so much. They don't bend, they don't cushion, they definitely don't smell great. But they keep your toes off the frostbite menu. No socks, of course. You wrap strips of cloth around your ankles for insulation, but half the time they come loose or slide down your boot, bunching like an angry snake. Over all this, you throw on your cloak. It's your one outer layer, and it's doing its best. Some cloaks are made of thick, felted wool with a hood. Yours? A rectangle of wool with a hole in the middle and maybe a wooden toggle at the neck. It's heavy. It smells like wet barn. It was probably your dad's, and his dad's, and so on. You check your reflection, which is to say, you glance at a slightly polished bit of metal someone hung near the fire. You look like you belong here. Hair wild, cheeks red from cold, dirt under your nails. You smile slightly. Your teeth aren't great. But you've seen worse. By now, other villagers are stirring. You glance outside and see them bundling up too. Ragged cloaks, patched trousers, some barefoot despite the mud. The idea of personal style doesn't really exist here. Status does. If you have red or blue dyed fabric, you're rich. You? You're brown, gray, and green. Earth tones, baby. Even nobles wear layers of wool and linen, but with more embroidery, tighter weaves, and much, much cleaner armpits. Maybe. Historians argue about that too. You shift uncomfortably. The seams rub under your arms. The belt digs in. Everything scratches. But this is your armor. Against the cold, the wind, the judgment of your goat. And as you step outside again, layered up like a cabbage. You know this outfit isn't going anywhere. Because neither are you. You're outside now, sort of awake, and definitely cold. The sun is just barely creeping over the hills, casting a dull gray light across the thatched roofs and muddy paths of your village. You take a few steps toward the well, then stop. You forgot something very important. Nature is calling, and there is no bathroom. There are a few options, none of them good. First, the bucket in the corner of the house. It's still half full from the night before and smells like it lost a bet. Option 2, the communal outhouse. That's a generous term for a hole in the ground with a plank on top and a wind-whipped curtain pretending to offer privacy. It's behind the pigsty, of course, because logically that's where the smell goes to retire. You shuffle toward the outhouse, boots squelching, wind stinging your face. As you walk, you pass another villager casually dumping a chamber pot out the window. She yells, "Gardy-loo!" as a warning, meaning, look out below, and then, without ceremony, unleashes whatever happened last night onto the street below. It splashes onto the road, steaming slightly in the morning chill. You sidestep it expertly. You're used to this. Medieval sanitation was more of a vague concept than a reality. Streets are often ankle-deep in slop, animal waste, human waste, spoiled food, random garbage. The road is essentially a compost bin with foot traffic. And yes, it smells exactly how you're imagining. You reach the outhouse. It leans slightly, as if it's tired of its own existence. You open the curtain, revealing a plank with a hole cut in it, suspended over a pit that may or may not reach the center of the earth. You brace yourself on the sides and lower down slowly, trying not to make eye contact with the flies. It's cold, colder than before. You try to be quick, but every creak of wood beneath you reminds you that this structure was built by a cousin who's mostly known for having good intentions and very bad math. Done. You survive it. You exit like a war veteran, slightly more hollow than when you entered. Fun fact, in cities the rich had garderobes, which were basically stone cubbies hanging off the side of buildings, with a hole that emptied straight into a moat or gutter. That's right, your castle had built-in gravity-powered waste disposal. Fancy, but also disgusting. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly understood the connection between waste and disease. Some say they noticed the patterns. Others argue they blamed bad smells or spiritual imbalance. Either way, no one is using hand sanitizer. You wipe your hands on your cloak and pretend that's fine. You shuffle back toward the house, passing a child peeing against a wall. No one reacts. This is just how things are. There are no boundaries, no locks, no shame. Bodily functions happen when and where they need to. If that makes you uncomfortable, well, you're in the wrong century. Oh, and remember that stream running through the village? It's technically for water. It's also for dumping waste, washing clothes, and letting animals wade through. Multi-purpose. Efficient. Also a terrible idea. The irony? Baths exist, but barely. Most people bathe once a season, if that. Warm water is precious. Soap is expensive. And public bathhouses, where they exist, are viewed with suspicion, especially as disease spreads. The Black Death hasn't hit yet, but when it does, people will start avoiding water altogether, thinking it opens the pores and invites sickness. So yeah, you're ahead of the curve by not bathing. You reach home again. The fire's barely clinging to life. You toss on a few twigs and watch the smoke rise, curling lazily toward the ceiling. It's time for breakfast, but you already know, it's not going to be great. Still, as your stomach grumbles, you can't help but feel a little grateful. You survived the morning ritual. You dodged chamber pot splashback. You made peace with the flies. And you've come out of it. Not clean, but functional, which is honestly as good as it gets around here. So you've done your business, heroically, dressed yourself, barely, and now it's time for the next great medieval challenge. Breakfast. That word might sound comforting, conjuring thoughts of eggs, toast, maybe a little fruit and some coffee. That's adorable. In 1325, breakfast is more of a symbolic gesture than a meal.
It's what happens when your stomach growls louder than the church bell. You sit by the fire, which is now emitting more smoke than warmth, and you reach for the family pot. Not the good kind of pot. This is the cooking vessel. It hangs over the flames like a worn-out veteran of 1,000 underwhelming meals. Inside, there's pottage. Now, let's talk pottage. It's the medieval version of whatever's left. A thick, gloopy stew of grains, legumes, sometimes vegetables, if you're lucky, and other ingredients best left unidentified. It's been cooking for days. Literally. The pot never fully empties. You just keep adding to it, like a murky cauldron of eternal mediocrity. You grab a wooden spoon, scoop out a chunk, and blow on it. It smells earthy. A polite way of saying it's one missed mushroom away from becoming a poison test. You chew slowly, and the texture is what you'd expect from a stew that's spent the last 18 hours getting better or worse over an open flame. Alongside the pottage, you're blessed with bread. Bread is a loose term. It's dense, dry, and hard enough to chip a tooth. In fact, some people joke that the bread is a weapon. You dunk it into your stew to soften it. It doesn't help. This loaf was baked 3 days ago and has all the charm of an ancient brick. Oh, and no butter. Butter is luxury. No jam, no cinnamon sugar. You are eating the kind of breakfast that makes oatmeal look like a royal dessert. To drink? Beer. At 6 a.m. Yes, beer for breakfast. But before you get excited, this isn't your craft IPA or hazy lager. This is small beer, low alcohol, thin, and mildly funky. But it's been boiled, which makes it safer than water. Hydration, medieval style. Historians note that small beer was common among all ages. Even kids drank it. There weren't many other options unless you wanted to risk cholera with your Cheerios. You finish your meal. Barely. You're not full, but you're not starving, and that's about as good as it gets. As you scrape the last bit of pottage from your bowl, you spot something gray and stringy in your spoon. Could be onion, could be rat, doesn't matter, you eat it anyway. Someone sits beside you. An uncle, maybe? He slurps noisily and tells you about a dream involving flying sheep. You nod politely, trying not to gag on the beer-scented.
You rinse your bowl in a bucket of grayish water. It's technically clean. At least no one's drowned in it recently. You dry it with your sleeve. Congratulations. The table is clear. Oh, and in case you were hoping for something sweet to round it all out, I'm sorry to say sugar is still an exotic imported luxury. You're not seeing sugar. You maybe heard of it. Maybe. And fruit? Seasonal? Spoils fast? Not a daily thing. If you live in the countryside, and you do, your breakfast is the same every day. And you will eat it every day, unless something breaks. The pot, your firewood supply, your will to live, that's not a joke. Starvation is a real concern. One bad harvest, one unlucky storm, and that pottage turns into hot water with hope. Still, there's comfort in the routine. You know what you're getting. You don't have to choose between smoothies or scrambled eggs. You just eat what's there and hope it stays down. And with that, you rise. Stomach humming, beer swirling, and jaw still sore from that medieval chew fest. You're fed, you're not dead, and you're ready. For now. Breakfast is behind you. Sort of. It's still clinging to your teeth, and your stomach is trying to negotiate terms with whatever that gray chunk was. But there's no time to dwell. The village is alive now. Barefoot children chasing each other through puddles, men hauling buckets, women sweeping filth off thresholds with brooms made of twigs. And you've got work to do. You step outside, your breath immediately fogging in front of you. The sun is up, but it's not warming anything yet. Your boots squelch in the mud as you make your way to your task of the day, farm labor, which is a nice way of saying you'll be physically destroyed by sundown. First up, hauling manure. You grab a wooden rake and start shifting piles of steaming, fly-infested dung from the barn out into the fields. Why? Because fertilizer is the difference between a meager harvest and famine, and you can't afford to lose a single root vegetable. It smells as bad as you'd expect. Maybe worse. You load it into a barrow. If it has one wheel and wobbles like a drunk duck, that's normal. and push it through the uneven, rocky paths toward the field. Every bump jolts your arms. Every step is a negotiation with your lower back. Then there's chopping wood. Firewood isn't optional. Without it, your home is just a cold box full of smoke and relatives. The logs are damp and heavy, and your axe is dull. You swing anyway, over and over. Your hands go numb, then blister, then numb again. You press on because there's no break room, no espresso machine, no ergonomic gloves. Historians estimate the average medieval peasant burned over 4,000 calories a day just surviving, and you feel every single one. By mid-morning, you've already done more physical labor than most modern office workers do in a week. But you're not done. Next chore? Drawing water. You make your way to the well with a wooden yoke balanced across your shoulders and 2 empty buckets hanging from each end. The path is slippery, your footing unreliable. The well is busy. Everyone's there. It's a chance for gossip, sure, but it's also exhausting. You wait your turn, fill your buckets, and begin the slow, shoulder-breaking walk back home. One misstep, and half your haul sloshes out. No one helps. Everyone's carrying something. There's no running water, no sink, no faucet. Every drop you use today, drinking, cooking, washing, is hand-carried. And washing clothes? That's a half-day operation, involving boiling water over an open fire and scrubbing with lye until your fingers hate you. You take a short break to repair the roof. A few slats of wood have shifted, letting the wind and occasional rat into your loft. You climb a rickety ladder and hammer in a few new shingles. By hammer, of course, we mean a rock tied to a stick. You're up there just long enough to catch sight of a neighboring farm, where someone is attempting to corral a cow that has absolutely no interest in cooperation. The cow wins. It always does. By noon, you're sweaty, sore, and lightly coated in soot, hay, and mystery goo. You wipe your face with your sleeve, which somehow makes things worse. But you keep going. Because there are no weekends. There are no breaks. The very idea of leisure is reserved for monks, lords, and the dead. You do this every day, all day, because the land demands it. If you don't till the soil, chop the wood, fetch the water, mend the roof, no one else will. And you'll pay for it. In hunger, in cold, in illness. Even children work. They fetch kindling, herd geese, scare crows from crops. Old people work too, mending clothes, weaving baskets, telling terrifying stories that may or may not be curses in disguise. Historians still debate whether medieval peasants were truly miserable all the time. Some argue there were moments of joy, community events, seasonal festivals, brief pauses where singing or dancing cut through the struggle. But those moments were rare and fleeting. Right now, you're focused on getting through the day without twisting an ankle or throwing out your back. You are, after all, your own health insurance. As the sun climbs toward its reluctant peak, your hands throb, your shoulders ache, and your legs tremble slightly. You've been outside for hours, and there are hours still to go. And if you think lunch is going to be a reward, well, brace yourself. The sun is high now, casting a pale, unimpressed light over the village. It's supposed to be midday, but it feels like you've already lived 2 lifetimes since waking up. Your arms are sore from hauling wood, your legs feel like boiled turnips, and your stomach? It's asking politely, then firmly, then desperately for something. Anything. It's time for lunch. That would be great news, if lunch were anything more than reheated disappointment. You trudge back to your dwelling, heart full of hope, bowl half full of expectations. What awaits you? Likely the same pottage you had for breakfast. Thicker now, maybe, if someone remembered to add grain. Or thinner, if someone borrowed a ladle while you were out fixing the fence. You sit by the fire, now smoldering again, thanks to your earlier wood chopping efforts. Someone has stirred the pot. Bless them. The pottage simmers with a vague smell of onion, turnip, and sadness. Maybe there's a carrot chunk floating in there today. Jackpot. You dunk your piece of bread into the mix again. It's still hard. You chew slowly. The roof of your mouth protests. The crust has gone from chewy to medieval dental hazard. Let's talk about this bread because it's not your average sandwich starter. This is trencher bread, which sometimes doubles as a plate. You know food is serious when your dish becomes edible out of sheer necessity. The bread's coarse, heavy, and dark, made from barley, rye, or oats. Wheat is rare and expensive. You've never even seen white bread. You've only heard whispers of it in church, where Jesus eats it and you absolutely do not. And that's not mold on your crust. Well, it might be, but most likely it's just flour that aged into a science experiment. Medieval folk had pretty strong stomachs, because they had to. Historians believe their gut flora was practically invincible compared to ours. That doesn't mean the bread won't turn on you. It might, but you'll risk it. You're hungry. To drink? Again, it's beer. Water is still terrifying. The stream's been contaminated since your great-grandmother's time, and boiling water is labor-intensive. So, small beer again. It's barely alcoholic, slightly tangy, and brewed in batches so weak you could swim in it. But it's liquid, it's warmish, and it's safer than cholera. There's a chunk of meat on the table. You stare at it, suspicious. It's dark, dry, and slightly shiny. Could be salted pork. Could be mutton. Could be last week's salted pork. Either way, it's meat. Protein is rare. You tear a sliver off with your knife and chew like your life depends on it, which it kind of does. You glance around the room. Everyone is eating in silence, except for the sound of chewing and the occasional wheeze from Granddad, who has one tooth and zero patience. Someone coughs. Someone else glares. The fire pops. That's lunch conversation. No one asks how your morning was. Everyone knows. It was manure, frostbite, and near.
You eat until your bowl is empty, your bread is soggy, and your stomach signals a reluctant, uneasy truce. You're not full, but you've got enough energy to work through the afternoon and maybe, just maybe, not pass out in the mud. You rinse your bowl again in the same murky water bucket, which somehow now looks even murkier. The spoon you used? You lick it and shove it into your belt. That's your cutlery drawer. Hygiene is a team sport, and the team is currently losing. Then you sigh, stretch your arms, ow, and return outside. The sun hasn't moved much. The sky is still that dull medieval gray, as if someone tried to paint it hopeful, but ran out of color halfway through. The air is damp. Your joints click like an old cart, and as you walk toward your next task, maybe repairing a fence, maybe weeding the field, you realize something important. You're incredibly resilient. Or incredibly numb. Either works. Oh, and remember that leftover pottage you just ate? It'll also be your dinner. And probably breakfast tomorrow. It's like a friend that never leaves. Comforting in theory, slightly horrifying in reality. But you've eaten. You're upright. You haven't been accused of witchcraft or died of dysentery. Yet. That counts as a win. Time to keep working. Back out you go. Stomach semi-satisfied and limbs back to trembling. The sun is no help. It's bright enough to mock you, but not warm enough to thaw your fingers. And now comes the part of the day where everything hurts, including your feelings. This is the long stretch, afternoon labor. The romantic term would be toiling on the land. The realistic one is doing whatever it takes to not die this winter. Today's job? Weeding and turning the soil for next season's planting. That means crouching, kneeling, digging, and shivering all at once. A combo your knees are really not designed for. You grab your spade, which is a flat piece of iron hammered into a wooden stick and held together with hope. The earth is hard and unforgiving. Each jab into the ground vibrates up your arms and into your spine. You pull weeds that fight back like angry snakes. Your fingertips go numb, then sting, then go numb again. The mud clings to your boots until you're twice as heavy, and you lose one of them at least once per week. Today might be that day. Every few minutes you stop to stretch your back, only to realize you're already hunched permanently. Straightening fully takes effort. It might even be illegal. You scan the horizon for a distraction. Anything. Maybe a cloud shaped like a loaf of bread. It isn't. It's shaped like a reminder that there's still 5 hours of light left. The livestock nearby aren't helping. The pigs scream randomly like they've read the script of a horror movie. The chickens are pecking each other again. One cow is just staring at you with dead-eyed judgment.
You nod back. Fair. A neighbor walks by carrying a bundle of sticks 3 times their size. You wave. They grunt. That's the entire social interaction. You're too tired to be friendly, and so are they. You break for water, you try the barrel near the shed. The water's cloudy, tepid, and tastes faintly of iron and dirt. It's either that or beer, which now makes you feel bloated and mildly suspicious of your own liver. So you sip the water. A little. Then hope for the best. You wipe sweat off your forehead with your sleeve, which is also your napkin, your towel, and possibly your handkerchief. There's a dried streak of something on it, possibly mud, possibly blood. You do not ask questions in 1325. And then you sneeze. Bad news, people are already giving you looks. In medieval times, a sneeze isn't just a sneeze. It's potentially a sign of plague, consumption, or demonic possession. There's no Tylenol, no Vicks, no hot soup with saltines, just herbal infusions and prayers you can barely afford. Historians still argue whether medieval folk truly understood illness transmission. Germ theory wasn't a thing yet. Some blamed bad air, others said sin or imbalance of humors. Either way, you're about to be offered a mix of nettles and sheep bile, or worse, isolation in the pig shed. You carry on, coughing into your elbow because you're ahead of your time, and try to look busy. The best way to avoid being accused of harboring disease is to be seen actively suffering through your chores. As you work, you notice something alarming. Your hands are starting to crack. The cold, the friction, the lack of gloves, it's all adding up. You flex your fingers and hear something pop. That's either a joint or a warning. The idea of quitting early doesn't exist. You're not paid by the hour. You don't get overtime. If you don't finish your assigned share of land today, you'll be behind tomorrow. That's the rule. That's always the rule. At some point, you scratch your arm and notice a rash. Maybe from stinging nettles, maybe from the strange soap you borrowed last week. Or maybe it's scabies. Again. You try not to think about it. Instead, you return to your rhythm. Dig, pull, cough, stretch, sigh, repeat, over and over. You think about your feet, which are wet. Again. They've been wet since morning. They'll be wet until bedtime. You think about what happens if they stay wet too long. Sores, infection, rot. There's no such thing as foot care here. If your feet give out, you're crawling to church. And not in a cute, humble pilgrim kind of way. As the light begins to shift, just slightly, just enough, you realize the day is finally starting to wind down. Your arms are jelly, your eyes are raw, and your soul, somewhere near your boots. You trudge back toward home, slower than before, dragging your tools, your pride, and a mysterious slop stain on your tunic that no one will ever identify. You survived another afternoon. That's something. You're home. Sort of. More accurately, you've returned to the same drafty, smoky, overshared shack you woke up in. But now you're limping and smell like compost. The sun is finally dipping toward the horizon, which should feel hopeful, like maybe you've earned some rest. But no, it's time for dinner. And if you were expecting a medieval feast, goblets, roast meat, a lute solo, you are once again in the wrong socioeconomic class. The only goblet in this house is a wooden cup with a suspicious crack, and the only thing roasting is your patience. Dinner, like every meal, is pottage. Yes, still, it's been cooking all day. The ingredients have broken down into an anonymous beige slurry. It bubbles quietly in the fire's embers. The medieval version of a microwave beep. You spoon it into a bowl with all the enthusiasm of someone preparing for dental surgery. It's hot, at least. That's something. You sit down with your family, all of you too tired to talk, too hungry not to eat. It's dark now, with only the fire and a single tallow candle flickering in the corner. The candle smells like old meat. That's because it's made from animal fat, which is exactly as appealing as it sounds. You gnaw at your bread. It's harder than before. You try not to chip a tooth. The stew scalds your tongue, but you welcome the pain. It reminds you you're still alive. Someone offers you a piece of cheese, probably from a goat, probably from last month. It's hard and a little sharp. You eat it anyway. Dairy is rare, and this counts as protein. You sip your beer. Again, you don't even like beer, but it's warm and it doesn't give you dysentery, so it's practically a health drink. Outside, the village is dimming. Smoke curls from the thatched roofs. Someone's dog barks in the distance. Someone else is arguing with a goose. You don't ask questions. Your joints creak as you shift on the wooden bench. There are no cushions, no chairs with backs. Your spine gave up hours ago. You eat with your knife, same one from earlier, the one you carry everywhere. No forks. Forks won't really catch on in England for another few hundred years. For now, it's spoon, knife, fingers, and don't drop the stew. And still somehow, this is the best part of the day. You're indoors, you're with people. You're not currently on fire, bleeding, or being chased by livestock. This is what passes for peace. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve because napkins are a luxury, and lean back slightly, letting your head rest against the cold, smoke-darkened wall. You think about bathing. You laugh. Bathing is a twice-a-year event, maybe. Water has to be hauled, heated, poured into a shared wooden tub. You might bathe with others. You might bathe after them. Either way, the water is gray and slightly chunky by the time it's your turn. Soap? So no bathing tonight. You wipe your face with a damp rag that lives near the fire. It's never been clean, but at least it's warm. You scratch your scalp. It itches. Constantly. Lice are a part of life. So are fleas. There are combs for that, but mostly, you just live with it. It's not that people don't care, it's that they don't have time to care. You've spent the day battling nature with your bare hands. You've earned the right to be itchy. Someone near the fire is singing softly. A lullaby, maybe. Or a prayer. You close your eyes and let the warmth soak in through your cloak. It smells like smoke, sweat, and goat. So do you. Historians often debate how aware peasants were of their own suffering. Some say they found joy in small things. Others believe they were simply too exhausted to complain. Either way, you're living the reality, and it's relentless. Dinner is done. The bowls are scraped, rinsed, stacked. You help sweep the floor, mostly to clear out the bits of food, dirt, and unidentifiable critter that wandered in. The fire is banked, the candle trimmed. It's almost time to sleep. But first, one last chore. You check the animals. You grab a splintery lantern and make your way into the night. It's quiet. The air is sharp and still. You hear owls. Maybe wolves. Hopefully not bandits. You duck into the animal shed and check the goats. Still alive. Still rude. One headbutts you. Standard. You return to the house and close the door behind you. It doesn't latch. It never does. You wedge a piece of wood into the frame and call it secure. Inside, the fire glows low. You curl onto your straw bed, wrap yourself in your cloak and your regrets, and exhale. Your body is broken. Your stomach is still kind of hungry. Your skin itches. Your hair is greasy. Your feet are damp. And yet, this is your day. This is every day. And you've made it to the end. You lie there in the dark, finely horizontal, your body aching in places you didn't know existed until today. You pull your cloak tighter, trying to trap the last bits of warmth from the fire, now reduced to a few glowing embers. It's not quite enough. It never is. The cold creeps in, slow and sure, like a lazy predator. It starts with your toes, already damp and curled against the straw. Then it spreads up your legs, seeps into your knees, which feel twice their age, and works its way into your spine like an uninvited guest. Winter in medieval times is less a season and more a sentence, a punishment. You survive it, but just barely. Tonight is no exception. It's freezing. Your breath fogs with every exhale. The walls of your home do nothing to keep out the wind, which whistles through every crack and knot in the timber. Your younger sibling is next to you, already snoring like a tiny, congested bear. You don't mind. Sharing a bed isn't just tradition, it's survival. Body heat is the most reliable heating system you have. Some nights, your mother joins you, or your grandfather. Entire families sleep together, packed like smoked herring in a straw mattress, trying to stay warm enough to make it to morning. It's not weird. It's not optional. It's just how it is. Still, the wind finds you. It always does. Outside, a dog howls. Maybe it's a wolf. Maybe it's something worse. The forests that surround your village are dark and deep and full of legends, some based on animals, others on things with names no one says out loud. You've heard the stories. You try not to think about them now. You try to sleep. But the cold is not kind. Every time you begin to drift off, it pulls you back. Your feet cramp, your hands curl, your nose feels like it's made of brittle paper. There's no relief, no flipping to the warm side of the pillow. Your whole pillow is cold. So is the bed. So is the air. So is everything. You shift, and the straw beneath you crackles. A flea jumps onto your leg and makes itself at home. You scratch without thinking. It's automatic now. You barely notice anymore. Historians note that medieval people often slept in two shifts, one early in the night and another just before dawn. Between those, prayers, small chores, even visits to neighbors. You're not surprised. It's hard to stay asleep when your mattress is basically a hay sandwich and the temperature is somewhere between refrigerator and regret. You manage to nod off for a few minutes only to be jolted awake by a sharp noise, a snap of wood, maybe the door shifting in the wind, maybe something else. You lie still, ears straining. Was that a hoof? A footstep? A thief? Bandits are real. So are desperate neighbors. Everyone's trying to survive the winter, and not everyone has enough food. You clutch your knife, your eating knife, your fixing things knife, your maybe having to defend yourself knife, and wait. The sound fades. Nothing happens. You exhale. The candle has burned out completely. The fire is dying. The room is pitch black except for the faintest glow near the hearth. You close your eyes and try again. You think of summer, of sun on your skin, of long days in the fields, of sweet apples and warm bread. You dream of swimming in cool water and falling asleep in the grass. You smile, just a little. And then a drip hits your face. A leak in the roof. Again. You groan softly and roll onto your side, pressing into the warmth of the person beside you. They grunt and roll away. You don't blame them. Everyone is tired. Everyone is frozen. And so the night stretches on, long, silent, cold. In the morning, you'll because that's the goal, really. Not to thrive, just to survive. And right now, survival means trying, desperately, to fall asleep before your own breath freezes your eyebrows. Eventually, sleep drags you under. Not peacefully, but in that exhausted, twitchy way where your muscles still spasm from the day's labor and your dreams are full of things you forgot to finish. Somewhere between a nightmare about losing a sheep and a memory of choking on stale bread, the faint light of dawn begins to press against the parchment window. You don't wake up so much as you return to consciousness out of necessity. Your back throbs, your neck's at a 45-degree angle, and your arm is completely numb because someone rolled onto it during the night and didn't move. You wiggle your fingers. Pain returns. Good morning. Your first thought? It's still cold. Colder than yesterday somehow. The fire is gone, now just ashes and blackened logs. The coals are dead. No warmth remains. Your breath clouds in the air like you're smoking regret. Next to you, your sibling coughs, a low, rattling sound that makes your stomach tighten. It's nothing, probably, just the damp, or maybe something worse. You sit up slowly, unpeeling yourself from the bed like a sticker off an old notebook. Every joint pops. You're too young to feel this old. You shuffle toward the hearth, grabbing a few half-dry sticks from the pile. You blow gently onto the ashes, hoping for a spark. Nothing. You strike flint against steel. Once, twice, 10 times. A spark, finally, a flicker. You nurse it with desperation until a weak flame dances to life. You hold your hands near it, palms out, soaking up what little heat there is. Your nails are dirty, your knuckles raw. One finger's bleeding from yesterday's wood chopping incident, but you barely feel it anymore. Around you, the house begins to wake again. Coughs, groans, footsteps. Another day is beginning, and it's just as hard as the last. Someone asks for water. You sigh, grab the pail, and trudge out to the well again. The ground crunches underfoot, frost. Your boots don't stop the cold, nothing does. The well's rope creaks as you lower the bucket, then groans as you haul it back up. Your shoulders burn. You pour carefully, then carry the sloshing bucket back, trying not to spill it or fall in the mud. You succeed at both. A miracle. Back inside, someone's already stirring the pottage. Surprise, it's thicker today. Maybe even better? Or maybe you've just stopped caring. You grab a bowl, sit on a low stool, and eat while the rest of the family finds their places. You chew quietly, trying not to think about how long this bowl's been washed with the same rag. Someone talks about the chickens, one's sick. That's bad. You only have 5.
Around you, the house begins to wake again. Coughs, groans, footsteps. Another day is beginning, and it's just as hard as the last. Someone asks for water. You sigh, grab the pail, and trudge out to the well again. The ground crunches underfoot, frost. Your boots don't stop the cold. Nothing does. The well's rope creaks as you lower the bucket, then groans as you haul it back up. Your shoulders burn. You pour carefully, then carry the sloshing bucket back, trying not to spill it or fall in the mud. You succeed at both. A miracle. Back inside, someone's already stirring the pottage. Surprise, it's thicker today. Maybe even better? Or maybe you've just stopped caring. You grab a bowl, sit on a low stool, and eat while the rest of the family finds their places. You chew quietly, trying not to think about how long this bowl's been washed with the same rag. Someone talks about the chickens. One's sick. That's bad, you only have 5. If it dies, that's fewer eggs, less barter, and maybe one terrible stew. After breakfast, it's laundry day. Not the cute kind with baskets and dryers, the medieval kind. Which means boiling water over a fire, adding lye or stale urine if you're traditional, and scrubbing until your hands blister. You head to the stream, dragging the clothes in a sack. Your hands go into the icy water and you gasp. There's no getting used to it. You scrub each item against a flat rock, then wring them out by hand, twisting until your wrists scream. By the time you're done, your fingers are pink and numb, and you're shivering again. Back home, the clothes are hung inside because outside they'll freeze solid. The air now smells like wet wool and hard work. You hope the smoke from the fire dries everything before nightfall. If it doesn't, you'll be sleeping in a damp shirt. Again. You spend the afternoon repairing a fence that collapsed under the snow's weight. It's tedious work, cutting new stakes, hammering them into frozen ground, but it has to be done. If the pigs escape, that's meat with legs running off into the forest. As you work, you think about the upcoming holy day. Maybe there will be a special meal. Maybe a priest will come through with stories and warnings about hell. Maybe someone will sing. You don't know. You glance at the sky. The sun is fading again, early. Winter days are short, and nights feel like forever. There's no candle left. You'll rely on firelight. You drag yourself back indoors, wipe your hands on your already filthy tunic, and sit near the hearth. Your mother hums. Someone sharpens a knife. Your grandfather coughs. That same rattling sound. It's always there, in the background. The cold, the damp, the ache in your chest. You know every winter claims someone. Maybe not in your house, maybe just a neighbor, but someone. A child, an elder, someone who slipped. Stories fade, but every village has its own quiet list of names never spoken after spring.
You sip your beer. Lukewarm, sour, familiar. You're not full, but you're alive. That's enough, for now. You're not sure when you fall asleep. The fire crackles softly, casting flickering shadows on the low wooden ceiling. Someone's snoring. Someone else mutters in their sleep. The wind howls against the side of the house, like a restless ghost. But tonight, you're too tired to care. And then it's morning again. Or something close enough. The light isn't bright, but it leaks into the room, gray and unimpressed. You open your eyes and feel exactly the same as when you closed them. Exhausted. Your first motion is a slow, reluctant stretch. Every joint complains. Your second is to reach for your boots, still damp. You slip them on anyway, because what choice do you have? You never really recover in medieval life. You just continue. Today's different, though. There's a strange buzz in the air, a low-level excitement, because it's market day. You head out early with your family, bundled in every layer you own. The market is in the nearby town. A long walk, muddy and cold, but worth it. If you're lucky, you might find salt, or cloth, or even dried apples, if someone's been hoarding and is finally ready to share. The walk is a test of your endurance. You navigate ruts in the frozen road, dodging carts, and stepping over manure piles like a medieval parkour expert. The village disappears behind you, and the trees open into a clearing where the market square waits. It's a feast for the senses, not in a gourmet way, but in a full sensory blitz kind of way. There are shouting merchants, braying animals, and the unmistakable scent of too many humans crammed into too small a space, wrapped in too many wool layers. You're not here to browse. Browsing is for people with coins. You're here to barter. You carry with you a small sack of eggs, a woven basket, and half a wheel of questionable cheese. That's your ticket to potential goods. You approach a vendor selling salted fish. He squints at your offerings and grunts. The haggling begins, not with numbers, but with shrugs, head tilts, and the subtle dance of, my stuff is slightly more valuable than your stuff, and you know it. Eventually you swap your cheese and 2 eggs for a length of coarse fabric. Not bad. You might patch a shirt with that, or trade it later for something better. Historians still argue how much autonomy peasants really had in markets. Some say they were free to trade as they wished. Others insist there were strict rules, taxes, and guild oversight. Either way, you know this. If you make a scene or cheat someone, you'll pay for it. Publicly. One stall offers sweets, little honey cakes, brown and sticky. You haven't had sugar in months. You want one. You don't get one. Instead, you find someone selling second-hand tools. A bent knife, a chipped chisel, a fire striker that only sparks if you swear it at first. You consider trading your basket. You do. It's fine. You'll carry things in your shirt now. That's medieval economics. You always lose something. The goal is to lose the least. Someone nearby is selling miracle cures, bottled elixirs in reused glass flasks, labeled in bad Latin. One promises to cure coughs, boils, curses, and heartbreak. Another claims to restore youth. You watch as a group gathers around, wide-eyed. You roll your eyes, but part of you wonders, if you had the coin, maybe you'd buy one, just in case. You hear shouting. 2 men arguing over a sack of flour. It gets loud, then physical. The crowd doesn't interfere. Market fights are as old as trade itself. You watch, chewing a piece of dried carrot someone handed you in pity. Eventually, your family gathers. Tired, cold, poorer, but equipped. You head home with your trades. A small hunk of salt, a wooden comb, and the bent knife. These are your treasures. Hard-earned, heavy in your pack, priceless in your reality. You make it back just as the light fades. Your feet hurt, your stomach growls, but you tuck the salt away carefully. It'll make the stew slightly more tolerable for the next week. You pass the knife around. It works. Barely, but it works. Dinner is quieter tonight. Everyone's spent. The road, the crowd, the pressure of needing things you can't afford, it wears on you. But something about market day lingers. The noise, the color, the brief, flickering sense of possibility. The illusion that maybe, just maybe, you're part of something bigger than this cold, muddy corner of the world. You go to sleep that night, with a sliver of that feeling still stuck in your mind, like a song you can't quite remember the lyrics to. Tomorrow, it's back to the grind. But tonight, you've bartered with the chaos, and you made it home. Morning again. This time, you wake to something new. An ache behind your eyes. A heaviness in your chest. You cough once, then again. It's wet. That's not good. You roll over slowly, trying not to disturb the others huddled beside you. Your nose is stuffy. Your limbs feel like sandbags. And your head is pounding with the dull rhythm of a blacksmith's hammer. You're sick. And in 1325, getting sick is terrifying. There's no doctor to call, no urgent care clinic, no painkillers. Just a handful of folk remedies, prayers. Too much or too little of any of them? That's your problem. You're not coughing because you inhaled smoke and live in moldy conditions. You're coughing because your bile is probably out of whack. So what's the cure? Bloodletting. A neighbor suggests it. Let out a bit of blood to restore balance, they say, like it's a casual manicure. A local barber, yes, the guy who cuts hair and pulls teeth, is called in. He brings a rusty knife and a small bowl. You lie back, arm exposed. The blade presses in. Blood drips. You feel faint. Good, he says. Means it's working. Historians still debate how much harm bloodletting actually caused. Some believe it helped by reducing fever or pressure. Others say it likely weakened already sick people even more. You feel like you've been mugged by science fiction. Next comes the herbal remedies. A mixture of garlic, onion, and honey mashed into a paste and applied behind your ears. Nettles are boiled and poured over your feet. Someone burns rosemary by your pillow to chase away the evil spirits that clearly started this. You sneeze violently. No one moves. They all step back instead. Your cough worsens. The fever climbs. You sweat through your tunic, then shiver until your teeth chatter. Your family wraps you in every blanket they own. 2, maybe 3 layers, and waits. They've seen this before. A winter illness isn't rare. In fact, it's expected. Cold, damp homes, close quarters, no real hygiene. You've already touched dozens of shared surfaces, drunk from a community bucket, and inhaled smoke thick enough to flavor your dreams. Getting sick is part of the rhythm, but surviving it? That's not guaranteed. You hear whispers at the edge of your haze. He's young. He's strong. We lost Mary last year. Boil more time. Someone comes in with a poultice. It smells like vinegar and desperation. They press it to your chest. It stings. You close your eyes. Dreams come quickly. Odd ones. You're in the market again, but everyone has goat heads. The bread is singing. You're floating down a stream of barley soup. It's either a fever dream or performance art. When you wake, it's night again. The fire's low. Your fever's still raging. You've coughed so hard your ribs feel bruised. But someone hands you broth. Thin, watery, but warm. You sip. You almost keep it down. That's a win. People are quieter around you now. They talk in low tones. They add garlic to your stew and cross themselves after each spoonful. A neighbor stops by to leave a pouch of dried herbs. She doesn't come in, she leaves it at the door. You feel like you're in a bubble, half here, half gone. And yet, you endure. Your body, for all its flaws, keeps fighting. Your lungs... The fever has broken. The air smells better. The soup tastes less like regret. You're not out of the woods yet, but you've made it past the worst. You smile weakly, which makes your sister cry. She thought you weren't going to make it. You did too. You'll be weak for days, you'll miss chores, the firewood will run low, the laundry will pile up. But no one complains. You're alive. And in the 14th century, that's more than most can say. You're upright again, barely. Every step feels like a negotiation with gravity, but your legs remember the rhythm of survival. You wrap yourself in your cloak, tuck your shirt tighter, and breathe in the heavy scent of smoke, wet wool, and stale sweat. Home. Outside, the world hasn't waited for you. The field still needs weeding, the animals still need feeding, the roof still leaks. You miss 3 days of work, maybe more. No one covered for you, because no one can. If you don't catch up, you'll pay later. With hunger. With sickness again. Maybe worse. You shuffle toward the hearth and add wood to the fire. It flares, soft and gold. Someone pats your back, gently. You nod. No words. Just a shared understanding that in a place like this, surviving illness is a quiet miracle. Then the church bell rings. Low, echoing, unmistakable. The whole village pauses. It's not Sunday, and no one's getting married. You already know. Someone's died. You walk to the church with the others, wrapped in silence and layers. The wind bites your cheeks, the road churns beneath your boots, and a trail of blackbirds watches from bare branches. The bell tolls again. Closer. Slower. You don't ask who it is. At the entrance, a priest waits, his robe damp from the morning fog. His face is tired in the way only someone who's buried too many neighbors can look. The crowd gathers, heads bowed. The coffin is plain, rough planks, quickly nailed. No frills, no inscription. It's the baker's youngest son, 7 years old. A cough turned into fever, then into silence. The same road you just traveled. You shift your weight, cold in your bones. The priest mutters Latin you don't understand. Dirt is thrown. A woman wails once, then goes quiet. It's not polite to scream in grief. You might do it anyway tonight, alone under the blankets. Historians note that medieval funerals were brief, practical, and incredibly frequent. Death was everywhere. Children died, elders vanished, mothers didn't return from childbirth, men fell from ladders, women drowned fetching water. Life expectancy hovered somewhere around 30 to 40 years, though that number's skewed by high infant mortality. If you made it to adulthood, you could hope for 50 if nothing went wrong. But something always goes wrong. Back home, the fire's nearly out again. You rekindle it, hands trembling slightly. Not from illness this time, but still. Dinner is prepared. A quiet one. No jokes tonight. Just spoons tapping bowls. The pottage tastes saltier. Or maybe you're crying. You don't check. You look across the room at your sibling. They're playing with a scrap of cloth, completely unaware of how close they came to becoming the subject of today's funeral. You push your bowl aside and step outside. It's dark already. A low mist crawls across the ground. In the distance, an owl hoots. Or maybe something else moves in the brush. Something you'll pretend was just a fox. You kneel near the fence and whisper the boy's name. Because that's what keeps people alive here. Not medicine, not miracles. Memory. Even if the church forgets, even if no one carves a gravestone, even if the seasons wash the burial mound flat, you will remember. You rise slowly and head back in. A dog greets you, wagging its tail. You rub behind its ears, feel its warmth. Life goes on. You lie down on the straw mattress, pull the cloak over your shoulders. Your sibling snuggles closer. You can feel their tiny heartbeat through the blanket. You don't sleep easily. No one does after a burial. But eventually, the fire softens, the wind calms, and your body lets go of the tension it's carried since morning. You whisper the boy's name one last time, and you drift. still here.
You wake with the sunrise filtering in through the parchment window.
Milky, soft, barely there. For a moment, you don't move. The ache in your limbs has dulled to a constant throb. Your skin is clear. Your breath is steady. You're recovering. The fever is gone. Life, in its quiet, medieval way, trudges on. And today, you're reminded that for some, trudging isn't even an option. You're helping your mother with chores when your older sister pulls you aside. She's 19, already married, already hardened. She wants to show you something. You follow her to the woodshed, where her voice drops to a whisper. She's pregnant again, she says. You pause. You look at her stomach, flat, tense. She nods. This is her fourth child. The first two didn't make it past infancy. The third, barely one, coughs every night like a grown man. And now, another on the way. She's not happy. She's afraid. Childbirth in medieval times is roulette with loaded dice. The odds are never good. There are no prenatal vitamins, no sterile gloves, no emergency cesareans, just an old midwife with herbs and hands that shake a little more each winter. She tells you her neighbor bled to death in bed last week, alone. Her husband was in the fields. You nod, because what else do you say? Medieval womanhood is a brutal loop. Marry young, bear children early, work always. A woman is a cook, a cleaner, a field worker, a caretaker, a wife, a birth machine. Her body is not her own. It belongs to the household, to the land, to the lineage. Your sister married at 15, not by choice, not really. The family needed the dowry, and the husband needed a womb that could also sew. She did what she had to. Everyone does. Today she's carrying firewood. Yesterday she butchered a chicken. Tomorrow she'll likely be scrubbing blood out of linen. And no one will say thank you. Not because they're cruel, because this is just life. Historians still argue about how much agency medieval women had. In some regions, widows could inherit property. In others, women were banned from trades, silenced in church, and burned for stepping out of line. In your village, it's simpler. If you're a woman, you keep your head down. You don't read. You don't speak too loudly. And if you get sick, or if childbirth goes wrong, you whisper a prayer and hope someone buries you gently. Later, you watch your sister with her child, the one who made it. She sings to him, a lullaby passed down from your mother's mother. He giggles. She smiles. And for a moment, it's beautiful. That's the tragedy and miracle of it. Somehow, amid all this, people love. They nurture. They find joy. They laugh and...
Her first child died at 3 months old. Her last, your youngest brother, is asleep in a straw basket, sucking his thumb. You sit beside her and start sewing too. You're not good at it. The needle pricks your finger. You curse under your breath. She chuckles. The first time she pricked her finger sewing, she was 9. The blood stained the cloth. Her mother made her wash it and redo it. She never forgot. You look around at the women in your house. Bent, brave, quiet, brilliant in ways the world doesn't see. The men are out splitting logs. They'll come in soon, hungry and loud. You'll serve them and they'll eat quickly, because hunger doesn't have time for politeness. But before that happens, you take a moment, just a breath, a glimpse of the firelight on your mother's face, the curve of your sister's smile as her son grabs her hand, the rustle of wind outside. You whisper a thank you, to no one in particular, just for being here, for still being alive. And then you go back to work. Because in this time, in this place, there's always work. The seasons shift slowly, but undeniably. The days, though still short and gray, are no longer soaked in frost. The ground is softening. The sun, weak and watery, lingers a little longer each evening. You feel it in your bones, before you see it with your eyes.
Winter is loosening its grip. But just because the ice is melting doesn't mean life gets easier. The stores are low. What food you managed to preserve months ago is nearly gone. The last of the salted pork is mostly fat and stringy ends. The grain bins echo when tapped. The rats, who seem to vanish during the worst of the cold, have returned with ambition. Spring planting is around the corner, but for now, it's the leanest stretch. The hunger gap, some call it. A cruel joke of timing, where nature teases you with signs of renewal, but offers nothing you can eat. You wake one morning to the sound of digging. Someone has started turning the soil in the field. You join them after a sip of tepid broth, barely more than water and dreams. You shoulder your spade, now dulled from months of use, and plunge it into the earth. It smells like rot and life, all at once. There's something comforting about the rhythm. Stab, lift, turn, repeat. Your muscles remember. Your skin remembers. Your calluses are returning like seasonal guests. As you work, someone nearby hums an old planting song. You don't know all the words, but the melody is familiar. You hum along. This is what hope sounds like in 1325. Shared labor, repetitive motion, a song half remembered, a prayer, not spoken, but buried in the dirt. The village, too, is stirring. Smoke rises from chimneys. Chickens squabble. Children chase each other with sticks, their laughter echoing over mud. You pause and watch, and for just a second,
And that's something. You go home that evening with dirt under your nails and sore shoulders. Your mother greets you with a bowl of stew. It's thin, but there's a carrot in it. First one in weeks. You eat slowly, reverently. Later, you help your sister mend a torn cloak. Your fingers are clumsy with the needle, but steadier than before. She doesn't scold. She just smiles. You sit by the fire, feet toasting near the embers, and think about the year ahead. There will be planting. There will be harvests. There will be blisters and laughter and maybe, just maybe, a feast come midsummer. And there will be loss. Again. There always is. But tonight there's warmth. Tonight there's family. Tonight there's a roof over your head and the knowledge that you made it through one more season. Not every story in medieval life is epic. Most aren't. They're not tales of kings or knights or dragons. They're stories like yours. Quiet, relentless, tender in their own grim way. Stories of surviving hunger, illness, work, and grief. Stories of stolen moments beside a fire, of whispered songs, of meals stretched with imagination. You pull your cloak tighter and rest your head on the bundle of rags that is, generously, called a pillow. Your sibling snores. Your feet are still cold. But you're not afraid of the dark tonight. You close your eyes. You breathe. You let go. And now, you can rest. The fire is burned low, just embers now. A soft orange glow, pulsing gently like a heartbeat beneath ash. The house is quiet, save for the occasional rustle of straw or the creak of old wood settling into stillness. Outside, the wind is calmed. No howling, no storms, just the faint sigh of air drifting through the village, as if the earth itself is exhaling. You're wrapped in your cloak, your blanket, your layers of rough fabric and rougher memory. But inside all of that, there's warmth. There's quiet. There's peace. Your body has worked, suffered, healed. It has carried you through long days and longer nights. And now, it thanks you. In stillness. In soft, shallow breaths. In the gentle release of every muscle that no longer needs to hold tension. Let them go. Your eyes are heavy. Let them close. You are not in a barn anymore. Not in the fields. Not standing barefoot in the snow or digging in frozen ground. You are here. In your own time. Safe. Still. And quiet. History fades now.
The flickering torches go dim. The church bell stills. The coughing stops. The goats sleep. Even the wolves have gone silent. There is only this moment, and you, drifting.